Close Racing Supply in Eldred, Pennsylvania has been in business since 1996, serving the motorsports industry with quality parts for dirt late models, modifieds, and stock clip race cars. In stock are parts from top manufacturers like All-Star Performance, Weir's Machine, Sweet Manufacturing, Winner's Performance, Willwood Brakes, and many others. CRS is also home of CRS Race Components, providing top-quality suspension parts. Orders are shipped out daily using UPS, FedEx, and truck freight. Find out more at closeracingsupply.com.
Let's go, look, brother, on the set, ready to flow. Kicking up dust, spinning tires, it's a dirt track show. Lenses, focus, inches, rolling, feel that adrenaline. Capture moments, freeze frames.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Woah Show, the last one of 2024. It'll be the last one for right now, sponsored by Great Lakes Speed Shop. Make sure you go see Bud and the gang, get you going fast in the off season. You know, winning in the spring and summer and the fall starts in the winter. Make sure you go see our guys, and make sure you see all of our sponsors. You'll see and hear from them later in the episode. And a very Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Day after Christmas, this is going up. And we'll get to our guest here. It's not every day we get to venture this far out in the motorsports realm, even though, you know, technically Tyler here kind of lives in our region, but PPMS doesn't get, you know, kind of lumped in, you know, in Lernerville with our region up here, which I think, you know, being that 3-hour drive, we should put some eyeballs on it. And that's why we're going to have Tyler here, going to talk about some stuff, promoting stuff. Welcome to the show, Tyler. It's great to have you here. I'm glad that we were able to meet this or connect this summer over the Rush late model stuff.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us on. Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope Santa brought you everything you wanted. If you were on the naughty list and you got a lump of coal, it's still worth something today, maybe even more than when you were a kid. So congratulations there too. But no, yeah, it was really cool having you down there this summer for some of the Rush stuff. You know, I'm glad that you enjoyed your time at the facility. A lot of things have changed over the past few years in my 5 years of being there, especially with the new ownership back in 2023 taking over with Blair and Tab. So happy you enjoyed yourself, and love to talk some racing and to shine a little bit more of a spotlight on that racetrack 3 hours south from you is a great opportunity.
Of course. And we were talking before we got on here that I've had the opportunity to travel a whole lot and be able to bring back a lot of these different things a lot of tracks might be doing different and offer up some ideas. And what you guys do down there, it impresses me. And we'll get into what your role is, how you got into all of this here in a second. But it impresses me in this day and age in motorsports, and I'm sure you've heard it all. You've been around for, you know, you said, you know, the last 5 years that you've been in there about different things. And it impresses me how you guys promote PPMS and my times there. It's always been a really cool. You guys have a great crew. Everybody's super nice to talk to and work with and stuff down there. But when you guys go into promoting a track like PPMS, you know, you have the Pittsburgher, in my opinion, has been a crown jewel since when I was a little guy. That's all everybody up here talked about was the Pittsburgher and having that on your schedule. But let's talk a little bit first about promoting the, you know, your guys' event schedule, maybe how you guys go through and pick a schedule for PPMS. You guys start early, beginning of April up here. It could be still snowing, so that's another thing. So when you guys go through picking different classes, you know, you guys have a lot of race cars down in that general region. How do you guys kind of go through your schedule, different promotions and things, and kind of promote what you guys going on this year?
Yeah, so that's changed quite a bit over the past call it 3 years. So like you kind of brought up a little bit ago, there being involved for 5 years. I worked with Ben Miley for the 2023 season on the schedule. Mostly that was done by Matt Miley before he had passed away in December. The schedule was pretty much set, but we had a little bit of adjusting to do to make sure that it was ready to go. So a little bit of experience there. Moving into the 2024 season when we release that schedule, really the most important thing with us being on Saturday nights is trying to work with the other racetracks as much as we possibly can to make sure that we're not stepping on toes or, you know, causing any unnecessary problems for one another. And you try to do what you can to work with one another. But at the end of the day, there's some things that just can't be avoided. You're going to have events that kind of step on top of each other, and it's just kind of how it is. You know, we're very fortunate in our, call it 3 to 4 hour radius, to have so many racetracks. I mean, not just in Pittsburgh, Lernerville, or anything like that. In like southwestern Pennsylvania, you have that state line, Erie's area, up north in your area. If you want to travel to Port Royal, Williams Grove, or anything like that, Bedford, it's not a far shot for you either. And I haven't even talked about Ohio or West Virginia. So very fortunate to have a hotbed of dirt racetracks in this area. But anyways, going back to your initial question, you work with the other racetracks in the area as much as you possibly can to figure out what the on-track stuff's going to look like. And then at that point, once you have that established and pretty well fine-tuned, obviously you always have that little subject. Schedule is tentative and subject to change, and that is crucial because you just never know when you're going to have to make a change on the fly. But after that, you start to kind of work in your promotions, your sponsorship nights and stuff like that. You start to formulate those, work those in, and then what you can do creatively to enhance your promotions. 2024, we basically just kind of allow that year to be, figure things out, get a feel for everything, and then you just kind of hit the ground running in 2025 and see what you can improve upon from the year prior. And I think that we've taken a lot of big risks this year, not so much on the event side of things, but perhaps on the promotion side of things. May 10th is Mother's Day weekend, so we're just doing a free ladies night. It's hard to determine exactly who's a mother and who's not a mother. And then there's women in the world that can't be mothers, and you don't want to discredit them either. So you want to give them their fair shake and just have a free ladies night period. We'll have a schools night out in the end of May for the kids that are getting out of school soon. Wear your school apparel, you get in for free. Straight up free admission night on June 28th. I mean, these are big risks at the end of the day. It's not the easiest thing to do, but at the end of the day, we're working and focused on getting people to come to the racetrack for the first time. That racetrack's been there since 1979, and you wouldn't believe the amount of people that say, I've lived 5 miles away and I've never heard of this place, never knew you existed. And we're trying to change that in a big way.
The crazy part, let me touch on that, is I have a friend that lives down there, and she's moving back up here, unfortunately, so I won't have a couch to sleep on when I come down. But she didn't even know that it was 5 minutes away. I was like, oh, it's in Imperial. She's like, oh, that's literally 2 streets away. Or, you know, it's crazy to me how close PPMS is to, and I hate to use this word, but I always say, like, the more, you know, the city-esque area, I call it civilization. Because I always say that, you know, some of these racetracks are in the middle of nowhere, and your guys' location is so close to a huge amount of people, and in that struggle of getting them out there and saying, hey, you know, how do we get, you know, people in on a Saturday night to be in the list of questions? The new promoter of State Line has said that often to me, of, you know, once you're in the conversation and you start getting in people's heads, you know, then you're in there. Then you might get picked 1 out of 3 times or 1 out of 4 times to be their Saturday night entertainment. So going through your guys' schedule, tons of risks. You guys are in a cool little area too, because you guys have sprint cars, you guys have late models, and of course the Pittsburgher being, you know, a crown gem in the area. So coming up, what are some key events? You touched on some promotions, but what are really the marquee events this year for PPMS?
Yeah, we've done a good job. The Mileys have over the years of establishing, you know, big events throughout the time, and I'll get to other people who have helped in that instance here as well. I think first and foremost, the one that probably might be on, or could be on, a lot of people's schedules up your way and throughout the region is the Pot of Gold race in March. We did that last year on a whim. I said, you know, I have this idea. I told Blair I have this idea. I think it'll work. And the thought really stemmed from a conversation with James Essex, the announcer for the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series. He had talked about how there was an event over in Ohio. I want to say it was maybe Atomic, the night the stars came out or something like that. It was the Lucas Oil Late Models and the All-Star Sprint Cars, I want to say. Might have been High Limit, but it was our largest viewed event on flow racing in history at that time. And I said, well, we have the elements here to recreate that, just with very valuable regional products in the Fast on Dirt series and Trevor Zuver's ULMS series. So I think that there might be something there, but we need a third support division just to make sure that everything's going to be okay. CDRA Northeast kind of came about. We had initial conversations and said, man, that would be the perfect fit. Realistically, you want something that's going to pull a large back gate and to help your back gate a little bit to ensure that you're going to be in good shape. And we made it happen. And then the good Lord allowed us to have a beautiful race day, direct sunlight and 60-degree weather, which is great. But then 15, 20 mile an hour winds pretty much all day. And people that were there, and I'm sure saw about it on social media, have a lot to talk about with that one, with the dust and and everything like that. But nonetheless, we were able to get the race in. So we learned our lessons. We took our punches. And the best way to learn is to fail sometimes. And I don't think the event was a failure. I think the event itself was a huge success. I think bringing in a St. Patrick's Day vibe is an opportunity to put a really awesome theme behind an event that's kind of celebrated and partied in an interesting fashion. So the Pot of Gold race is back for 2025. This year, it'll be the Fast on Dirt Sprint cars again, returning with unsanctioned models. We won't be running under the ULMS banner this year. And then we're also going to be bringing in the Crown Vics this year, which are rapidly growing in popularity here in the Northeast. Looking forward to that. Other big events, I'll touch on 3 of them. You've already mentioned one of them, the Pittsburgher. Man, if you've never been to a Pittsburgher, it's going to be bigger and better than ever this year. Looking forward to 2 nights of the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series presented by Flow Racing. Really excited to see the roster that they put back together here. 17 full-timers last year. No reason to believe it's going to be anything less than that this year. So, but besides that, Vince LeBoon, one of the promoters at the racetrack as well, has always promoted his father's race, the Ed LeBoon Memorial for the Penn Ohio Pro Stocks. In my opinion, the most prestigious pro stock event in the entire division, just because it's 14 years long. It's consistently put out some phenomenal racing, and it's attracted some of the best pro stocks in Western Pennsylvania and beyond. So I'm looking forward to the Ed LeBoon Memorial again, the 14th annual running of that event. Vince does a great job year in and year out. And then the Jook George Steel City Classic for the Rush Late Model Touring Series. Cletus Motorsports does a phenomenal job promoting that event with the George family. They come in groves, the family does, to support and celebrate that event. And remember Jook, who was a tremendous car owner and a good guy overall, from what I understand. Never had the honor or pleasure of meeting him. But those are a few big events there. Obviously, the free admission night, June 28th. I already mentioned that. So, if you're looking for a free night and you can justify maybe the 3-hour drive back, or grab a hotel and go check out the city of Pittsburgh while you're down here, come on out for June 28th. It'll be on our tab. And plenty to look, though. ppms.com/schedule is where you can go check out what we have going on, and plenty of things to bring us down, or bring you down to Pittsburgh and check out to see what we're doing.
And it's honestly in a really great spot too. Speaking on, exploring the city, if you stay the night and do the next day. That's what I did the last time I was down there. I'm grateful that you guys let me come down there and hang out and do some cool photo stuff down there. So let's talk about your role. We skipped right over that. I got really into the promotion side. Schedules have been on my mind. I'm recording this a week in advance. Yesterday we just released the Stayline schedule, so it's almost like Christmas time for race fans anyways, getting all these good schedules out and all these what to be excited for here in a couple months. So let's talk about your role with PPMS and how this kind of came about. You said you were there for 5 years. What all are your responsibilities, and how did you get this position?
Yeah, so I started off in 2020. I initially reached out to Blanket Hill whenever they first reopened, was looking for an announcer, and I had inquired. I went to California University of Pennsylvania, which I think it's like Penn West, California or something like that now. But I went to Cal U for radio and TV communications. So I did like a year and a half of broadcast work down there with California University Television. Did some football announcing, soccer, swimming, basketball, volleyball, a little bit of everything. And so you combine that with the passion of racing, and just kind of naturally had a little bit of a hunch for it, I suppose. So I reached out to Blanket Hill. They were interested in bringing me in. Ultimately, they went with Matt Allen, who is still the announcer out there. So I was looking for other opportunities elsewhere. I got in touch with Don Gamble. I have a very good relationship with him from before I got involved with racing with my family, who used to also race back in the late 70s and early 80s. And he said, I think PPMS is looking for some help. Perhaps you can get in touch with Jim Zufall, the announcer there, and see what they can do for you. So I started off in the 2020 season after COVID allowed us to get back to racing, flipping switches on a scoreboard. And the scoreboard that's been there since God knows when. I think that might be the original one from Heidelberg. I'm not 100% positive. So I had the opportunity to run the scoreboard there, and Jim afforded me the opportunity to do some Victory Lane interviews, and Don afforded me the opportunity to do some interviews for Rapping on Racing. So allowed me to kind of get my training wheels off and get my feet underneath me and get some experience. 2021, a lot the same, running the scoreboard and doing victory lane interviews. And then Jim said to me, hey, it's time for me to go. And I can't think of anybody better to fill this position for the announcer than you, which was a tremendous honor. There had only been 4 announcers prior to him, including him, before ever at the Speedway full time. So I thought that was a tremendous opportunity to be amongst an exclusive list. So 2022, got to announce, and after the 2022 season, we talked about a little bit ago with Matt Miley passing away. He ran a lot of the social media, and there was a huge void there to fill. So I kind of took on the reins of running their social medias accounts, and then naturally started doing some marketing stuff for them as well, trying to get some sponsorships and stuff. And then did that for the entirety of the 2023 season. Midway through, I find out that a sale is pending, which was interesting. A lot of people unnecessarily get really, really curious and start making up stories and believing everything they read, and the rumor mill goes crazy, and you got to kind of like calm them down a little bit. Fortunately, Blair Crest Jr. comes along, owner of a landscaping and tree service company called 2020 Landscaping and Tree Service, and he's interested in buying the facility for the property. 220 acres zoned near his home, which he was a big fan of, just so happened to come with a turnkey racetrack on top of it. So he's interested in buying the place, and Ben Miley, late model legend, basically told Blair, hey, here's your announcer, here's your guy. He can pretty much do it all, managing the website with Steve Skarupa, one of our communications directors as well. Basically said that this guy can pretty much handle what needs to be done, which was, for Ben Miley to say that is really cool. So when the racetrack was sold, I pretty much took over everything at that point in terms of promotions, marketing, social media, and then just continued that throughout the 2024 season. And as now I've gotten more comfortable with the role, it's getting a little bit easier and equally.
Hey everybody, Woah Nelly from the future here. As you can tell, I'm wearing something completely different. This Caden Bush, Carpy's Print Company original hoodie, and the Woah Nelly hat, and it's also daytime, so that's how you know it's a little bit different. We just want to make sure we thank our 2024 partners for the season and everything they do for us. Without them, we don't get to do all this amazing stuff that we get to do, whether it's promoting races, covering racing all over. They make it a lot easier for us, and, helping them out, whether we give them photos or, whatever we can do for them to also keep the cycle going, to make sure we are always giving back while they are giving back to us, if that makes sense. Anyways, let's start with our premium sponsors. First off, Carpy's Print Company, the best damn print company in the land. They make our awesome checks for all of our races. Every single time they make a new check for us, it's always the best one since the last one. Those guys are amazing. Also, they make the best hats. They fit. Even the beanies. They fit my big head. If you got a big head like me and you don't like a beanie that sweatbands, not just to promote my own stuff, these things don't do that. But they also make some of the best hoodies. They always are, I always say, fat guy friendly. They're a little bit bigger, a lot cozier. If Carpy doesn't do it, you don't need it. Close Racing Supply also was our headlining sponsor for the 5th anniversary Woah Nelly race at McKean County Raceway. They provide parts from all over the country from the leading manufacturers of dirt racing parts. So if you need to pick up one of those or some of their original parts, they fabricate stuff in their shop too. And it's the best. It's some of the best stuff you can get in the region. Not even just the region, nationally. If you look at some of their posts and see who's winning with their stuff and some of their customers, man, it's a who's who of using Close Racing Supply. So if you're looking to improve your game in 2025, make sure you stop by either their store in Eldred, or you can shop them online and get it shipped. So you can just do it from the comfort of your home. Great Lakes Speed Shop is your podcast sponsor for 2024. They present this particular show right here. And also, they were a secondary sponsor to our races. But the gang makes sure you are going fast, whether it's a modified, late model, or what have you. Bud will get you going in the right direction for the 2025 season. Check them out. Martin Dynamics is your premier source for suspension components, if you see a guy up front, it's probably a Martin Dynamics guy. These guys have it figured out. Suspension is the most important part of the game today. So make sure you go check out Martin Dynamics. They're some of the greatest people that we get to work with. And man, those guys over there, geniuses. I have no idea. We don't race cars here. We just make them look fast. But we know how important suspension is. It's probably the most important part of any race car currently today. And Dumb Mountain 106.3, our marketing partner, they helped us out with doing some stuff for the Smithport McKean County deal. Without them, we wouldn't be able to get more butts in seats and reach an entire demographic that we wouldn't be able to. So if you're looking to get your business promote or product or brand out in front of some people, make sure you go check out The Mountain today and what they can do for you. And let's go get back to that conversation.
Challenging. So
you basically had the accelerated path here to the promotions gig at PPMS. I mean, it's kind of crazy how quick things move in the racing world. In my 5 years, I went from no one knew who I was to hey, you're now the head photographer at State Line. Well, first I went with the ULMS, and then now I was the head photographer at State Line and Freedom, and now we're promoting racing. I'm like, oh my goodness, how quick. The racing industry really does move that quick if you are driven like that. I tell a lot of people that always ask about trying to get in, I'm just like, just not to say stick your nose in, but just be like, hey, what can I do? What can I, every racetrack's looking for a lot of help right now. So especially, I know around here, a lot of racetracks are going through some transition periods and looking for some folks. So Tyler, I asked this, and now it's going to be a week from now. I'm going to get all messed up. Usually I'm very last minute on these podcasts. This is probably the earliest I've ever recorded for the one coming up next week. So I asked Bill at State Line to do this after our schedule released. As the way we ended, we got a lot to talk about still, but it's on my mind. Give me your elevator pitch of why somebody should come visit PPMS on a Saturday night.
I think we've got an exceptional product down at PPMS. We have the opportunity to give family entertainment for a fairly decent price, especially in our market where we have so much to look out for. There's so much around us in close proximity. We're 15 miles south of the airport and 20 miles west of downtown Pittsburgh. So you've got the Pirates, the Penguins, the Steelers, Star Lake Amphitheater, concerts galore, Highmark Stadium. There's so much going on in Pittsburgh, and all of those, as anybody pretty much knows, is whenever you go down to an event in downtown Pittsburgh, you're probably going to spend an arm and a leg, and that's if you're just by yourself with a significant other. If you've got children, forget about it. It's lights out. At PPMS, we're able to put on a very affordable family product for a good price and a good value overall, because I think that if you come to a race at Pittsburgh, you won't be disappointed by your night whatsoever. I think we do a tremendous job of entertaining the people while they're there. If there's something going on like track prep or a down moment, we have the opportunity to then take the show into the crowd, talk to the kids, let them say the darndest thing, shoot off some t-shirts with some cannons, and give away some door prizes courtesy of some of our great partners. So I encourage everybody the opportunity to come down once. I'll give you a free ticket to do it. You have to come down at least once and at least experience to say that you've at least been there. And if you didn't enjoy yourself, I'm not going to fault you for that. Probably that's our fault, and probably we failed you. But if you did enjoy yourself, then hopefully that if you can't make it back down, you encourage others to go check it out for themselves as well.
And I'll put in on this as somebody that just recently, this year was my first year at PPMS, and I am not somebody who really, really likes big tracks. PPMS is huge. It's a huge facility. He said 220 acres is the entire property. The place is massive. Every time I go on the wrong entrance to even get to the pitch. And every time and I went down the last time, for just late models. But the first time I went, my friends told me about it. They're like, hey, don't go in the gate, don't go in the gate, this one, you got to go around. And I didn't listen, but I've never been a huge fan of big tracks before. And this isn't just me saying, oh, big tracks don't provide good racing. I think Port Royal is a phenomenal place for racing, and that's huge too. The Crate Late Model Show that I saw as my first time there was phenomenal. I think the racing product is something that, every racetrack is unique in their own way, but I think PPMS has a lot of things that, as somebody that lives up here in the New York and northwestern PA region, you don't get anything quite like PPMS, and it's definitely a place to go visit. And I will say it is kind of funky when you are in the pits and the cars go by and then it goes quiet. It's very weird, but it's a very cool facility, and I'd recommend it to anybody to go at least once. Like Tyler said, go down there. So we're going to talk about something that I think is exciting, and I think a lot of people are excited about, is that the outside wall is getting replaced. So how did this come about? How's the response to it?
Yeah, I think that anybody that's been there, and I don't even think you've had to be there, has noticed that the wall has always been a problem of an area of concern for decades now. At this point, you talk to any sprint car driver, sometimes the fastest way around that racetrack is right up against that wall, and they'll be the first one to tell you about the lag bolts that have been sticking out of it for years. And the lag bolts, as they're sticking out, are actually curved in the direction of that the cars go because they've smacked off of them. So it's been pretty evident that wall's been in desperate need of work for years. And trust me, this isn't me bashing the Mileys. I have nothing but respect for the Mileys. I understand why they did what they did and how they ran their business. And I have the utmost amount of respect for that, because for somebody to own a racetrack and continually operate it for 35 years demands respect in this industry, because that's very, very difficult to do. That wall's the original wall from Heidelberg, the boilerplate that was used for the outside wall. So it's got a lot of history behind it. That thing's been hit so many times, probably more than the entire Pittsburgh Steelers offense and defense this year combined. So it's taken a beating. So I think the plan has been in place for since the majority of last year. We kind of knew that was going to be the plan. We weren't exactly sure on how it was going to be done, what material was going to be used, but we knew that it needed done. And I think it was just such a relief in a sick way. There were some photos that were taken at the Pittsburgher where you can see cars coming down the backstretch. Heath Lawson, and I'm sure you can appreciate this yourself being a photographer, Heath Lawson is one of the best photographers in the business, and he's able to capture moments and capture scenes at a fascinating pace and at a fascinating rate. There's photos of some of those Lucas guys going to that backstretch, and that wall is just sticking out every which way you can think of. It was kind of relieving in a way, knowing that wasn't going to be the case going into 2025. We are just so lucky to have Blair that came in and decided that also needed to be done. And we also knew that the overall appeal wouldn't just be a benefit to the drivers, but to the fans as well. And anybody watching, whether it's in the grandstands or watching on the cushion at home, would be able to see a wall that's actually intact, well put together, and uniform and solid. So we went with the concrete bin block. We think it's just going to hold up very well over time. If anything ever happens and you need to swap them out, it's easy to do. You just remove them and replace the one that's needed and put it back in place, and you're good to go. So it's going to be a solid wall. It'll be around for a long time, probably longer than I'll be alive, to be honest with you. And it's just gonna improve the overall appeal. So that way, if you're ever coming to the racetrack, you see this beautiful wall painted white, and we intend to put the legendary Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Motor Speedway logo on the back of it too, hand painted hopefully by Ed Miller if he's watching. Ed does phenomenal hand painting work. We're going to continue a lot of the former traditions of the racetrack. Hopefully, get some sponsors on there, just like back in the day. You used to see the WDVE logo in turn number 3. So it'll be cool to have that opportunity to kind of bring that back to life as well, while introducing a new product and a new appeal to the facility.
So let's look ahead, and I think this is a great question, as I feel like a track, you guys are kind of moving forward. You guys do a lot of really good stuff about moving into the modern age, doing streaming, your guys' social media and websites on point. And so looking here in the next, let's say 5 years, where would you want PPMS to be? What kind of goals are you guys striving for here, maybe in the next 5 years for the
Yeah, it's easy to get over ambitious and outspend. That's the biggest thing, is you got to watch the bottom line and make sure that you're not going to put yourselves in financial risk or danger. It's easy to throw money at things and expect them to work. Well, I shouldn't say expect them to work, but it's easy to throw money at things if it's available for you to do it. But you've got to be calculated and take calculated risks whenever you do take risks. At the end of the day, though, you got to ensure that your product is a good product, that it's stable, that you can afford it each week, and with room to improve. With that being said, in 5 years, I mean, the sky's the limit. I'm motivated to make Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Motor Speedway one of the top facilities, not just in Western Pennsylvania, but in the nation. And I think Blair kind of shares that. We have everything there to do it. We have the land, as we've talked about. Facility is huge. Big half-mile racetrack, 0.555 miles around the outside wall. We'll have to Google map it or Google Earth it whenever the wall's completed to see if it got any bigger or smaller. But as it stands now, that's what it is. So the facilities are there. The location is perfect. You're in a top 60 metropolitan city in the United States, 15 miles from the international airport and 20 miles from downtown Pittsburgh. So you could be somebody literally from anywhere, be able to fly into Pittsburgh, take an Uber from the airport to your hotel room, take an Uber to the racetrack, take an Uber back from the racetrack, and never have to rent a car. Unless you want to rent a car and drive the city, then so be it. So you could be from a couple hours away to hours away and still have the opportunity to come. So keeping that in mind, you have some extra motivation there to push a little harder, because you know that ultimately everything there is in your favor. There's so much around to do, not even in downtown Pittsburgh, but the city of Robinson's just a few miles away from the racetrack as well. Straight shot down 2230. You could be at a mall, 1,000 hotel rooms. Plus, at this point, you have endless restaurants. You have entertainment in Robinson as well. So there's so much extra to do while you're there watching the race. So I think with that all being said, I'm just focusing on improving our product. We can bring everybody in and give them incentive to come until the cows go home. But at the end of the day, though, we need to make sure that when they come to our facility, that they truly enjoy themselves and we give them an entertaining show that they want to come back and see at some point. So the Pittsburgher provides a perfect opportunity to do that with the top national late model touring series, in my opinion, coming in. I encourage anybody that's never been to a Pittsburgher, come check it out, because I think we're gonna make this one the best in modern history.
All right. So before we wrap this up, we've been doing at the end of this I wouldn't say it's the new version of the podcast, but we never have a format other than the intro, and then we somehow end it. And now we have kind of an ending little bit here, as we ask 5 questions. And they're the same 5 questions. Sometimes I have to change it up. As last week's episode that was totally not released today, as of recording, I had to change it at the end because Ben's only 18 or 19, so I couldn't ask him the last question that we usually ask.
He's probably still experienced it, let's be honest. It's Ben Easler. How do you think he earned that name, Hollywood?
Ben is a character. I will tell you, it's funny, is when bringing Ben onto the show, he was all nervous that he wasn't going to be a good interview, or he wouldn't talk well on a podcast. I'm like, Ben, when we talk and we're just kind of like shooting the shit in his pit, I'm like, you give me some answers that most people, I'm like, you're fine. You're fine. I think we were at PPMS one night and he was talking about how he's driving the car, and I'm sitting there like, man, you couldn't, if you didn't know how old he was, how he was describing things, you're like, oh man, this dude's been driving for 10, 15 years. And, he's a good kid. I really enjoyed having him on. But yeah, he wasn't old enough for me to ask if we could bring back, it's the last question. We'll get there when we get there. But if we could bring back one thing in racing, what would it be? I'm like, he just got out of karts a couple years ago, it feels like. So, like, asking that question's like, he's kind of seen about as much racing as I have in my adult life. So, but all right, we'll start with the first question. Who's your favorite race car driver ever? You can hurt feelings on this podcast. We love it. It's a controversial one here.
My goodness, favorite ever. So, from a respect standpoint, just seeing him as he performs and seeing how he conducts himself at every facility he goes to, no matter what, it's hard to say anybody other than Kyle Larson, in my opinion. He's a generational talent that we are so fortunate in our lifetime to be able to watch. Probably one of the greatest of all time. The best thing about it is you see how drivers interact with fans, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Kyle has no reason to stick around his pit after a race at Lernerville and make sure he signs every last person's autograph before he leaves, but he does it because he cares and he loves the sport and he loves his fans. To be that talented and to still have that mindset and never lose sight of that is just is so phenomenal. So I'm going to go ahead and say Kyle Larson. I know as a promoter, you're never supposed to have favorites, but it's hard to bet against that guy. And I guess realistically, Rico's probably in the same boat because I know that he does the same thing too. But Kyle's just in that upper level of IndyCar racing, NASCAR racing. Rico quite hasn't gotten there. So I'll say Kyle Larson.
That was a so I went to Lernerville when Dale Jr. was there, and I think Larson was there too, and Casey Kane was there. They had all these names, and to see how some of these top level guys that come in that don't really race very often. I know Larson races more than all of them, and see that line of people. It's an overwhelm if you haven't ever seen it before. And I know up here we get World of Outlaw events and Lucas Oil up our way, and you see crowds form. But if you've never seen a crowd form like a Kyle Larson crowd, it's like guys, they were like in turn 1 in Lernerville, and the pits are in past turn 4. That's how long the line was. Same thing with when Dale Jr. was there too. It was an absolute, I wouldn't say it was a mob. Everybody was very respectful because we're like, we have racing royalty at the racetrack, but it was crazy to see someone so popular. And he's just like, he likes it, I'm sure he throws back to back when he was just starting and he was a fan. And, that fan interaction is really, really important. I hope we get to do more here in the next few years because, and especially with doing the podcast like this and people putting a face with the race car or a face with the promotion or the ownership or the people behind the scenes, gives them a little bit. But we can always do more for that fan interaction because without those guys, everybody watching around the track drinking beer, we don't get to do all this. So that's a good one. I don't think Kyle Larson has been brought up yet. So
well, I'm happy to be the first to bring him up. He deserves all the credit that he gets. I hope that Memorial Day weekend goes better for him for the double. I hope we have the opportunity to see how he stacks up in an IndyCar and has a fair shake at it. And it'd be really impressive to see that kind of a result. And yeah, I just, and that's the biggest thing. Besides the on-track talent, it's just the way he conducts himself as a person that's just so admirable. I would kill if half of our drivers conducted themselves in that same manner. Don't get me wrong. I think most of them do. They have that opportunity to be the superhero whenever they put that driver's suit on, and those kids will get the opportunity to look up to them in some capacity. I think our drivers do a tremendous job, especially going to Touch of Trucks and car shows and stuff like that, and signing autographs for the kids and letting them get to sit in the race cars and seeing the smiles on the face when the race cars start up and rev up. I think our drivers do a tremendous job at that. I'm so appreciative of them for doing that. And again, kind of going back to where we're at locationally to be able to attend events like that so frequently. But Kyle Larson doesn't have to do any of that, and he chooses to do it. So to me, it was almost a no-brainer.
So, and for this one, you can pick PPMS, but your favorite racetrack that you've ever been to?
Yeah, I should say PPMS, right? I tell you what, I'll tell you a little bit of a funny story. Before I started in my time at PPMS, I swore to never go there, and I swore to never give them $1 of my money. And that was just from the unnecessary, and I don't know what the right word is, but the unnecessary opposition against the Miley family that I had heard and bought into. After getting to work with and know the Miley family and understanding their reasonings for everything, I fully understand why they ran their business the way they chose to run their business, and I even appreciate it. So with that being said, PPMS does have a special place in my heart for more than just I remember starting back up and working there and watching the on-track product and realizing, man, I've been depriving myself of tremendous racing for years. I know people will say big half-mile fast racetracks don't produce good racing, and I'm sorry to say, but that I think at Pittsburgh, the way it gets black and slick and widens out, I think that's far from true. I think it produces some phenomenal racing, especially with the rush late models. When you see rush late model lap times faster than super late model times, that there's something to be said about that. That's a racetrack that becomes a driver's track and not necessarily who's got the best equipment. And I can appreciate that because I think that this area has a lot of drivers on both ends of the spectrum. We've got a lot of drivers that have very top of the line equipment, and we've got drivers that work week to week and grind that axe to make it to the racetrack every week. And whenever you can kind of level the playing field a little bit and let those kind of fields equal out, and it all goes to set up in racetrack, and appreciate that and love that about Pittsburgh. Admittedly though, I'm 20 minutes from Lernerville Speedway. That's where I spent my Friday nights growing up. I love Lernerville, and my favorite Saturday night racetrack growing up was always Marion Center. I love that 3/8 egg-shaped racetrack. It's just has a special place in my heart, going up to the rain drop and getting some food or size pizza on the way up there and getting some food, stopping and getting some ice cream before the races too, just across the road from those two restaurants, from Size Pizzeria. The no hot laps always fascinated me. The sharp turn into turn one always fascinated me. And I've seen plenty of good racing up there. So Marion Center has a special place in my heart as well.
I'll say that Marion Center has a special place for me too. I've worked with their marketing staff just as I've worked with you for the photo deal. I've been going there way longer than PPMS, just to admit that. But I've never missed a Connor Bobick Memorial for the World of Outlaws there. Derek is a close friend of mine. I respect him probably as much as any other photographer in the area, because he's one of those guys that he's a gamer, right? For the photo thing. He's one of my favorite people to see at a racetrack. When we do get to cross paths, it doesn't happen very often anymore with how much I'm involved with, doing state line and a lot of these New York tracks up here. But man, the Lernerville's another one too. I like going there too. But Marion Center is definitely a very special place. Since I don't think, how we say PPMS is unique. I think Marion Center is one of those very unique racetracks up on top of a hill. You come around the bend there and you see it up on top of the hill. And I know that a lot of my friends that I take their first times there, they're just like, you see all the stackers up on the hill and they're like, there it is. And it's just provides really good racing too. And I didn't so I ran out of words there, but I have to shout out Marion Center every time we get a chance. I never get to go down there and show them enough love. That place is awesome. Lernerville's awesome. And we'll move on to the next question here is, what is your favorite all-time moment in racing that you've gotten to experience?
Man, that's a great question. I should have prepared myself a little bit more.
This is I want to see the gut reaction when I ask these questions.
Yeah, man. I can't really think of one off the top of my head. The sad thing about promotion, I guess I'll give you a little bit of an answer that's completely off topic and not related to your question, but somewhat related. When you get into this side of things, and even as an announcer, you tend to forget those big moments, unfortunately. You don't have time to focus on it or dwell on it or appreciate it sometimes. You kind of just have to move on to what's next. And that's kind of a blessing and a curse in some areas, because it's a blessing to be in the opportunity, or to have the opportunity to be the announcer, to promote events, but it's a curse too, because you don't have time to sometimes truly take them in. What was your initial question? Because I might have an answer.
What is your favorite moment of all time?
Okay. Yep. I got an answer for you. So the first Pittsburgher that I had the opportunity to promote was one of my all-time favorite things. Saturday right before the event started, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a man enough to admit it. I had tears coming out of my eyes. I could not believe that we had almost a packed house come to an event that I had the opportunity to push on social media. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series. People are coming, and let's be honest too, the sale of the Speedway attracted a lot of people. But to have the opportunity to promote and push and plan that event out, and to see it come to fruition, and for the most part go pretty smooth. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some hiccups, there were some things to improve upon, which even more fortunate to have the opportunity to improve those things for 2024's race. It brought a tear to my eyes to see that many people there, and to see the photos of the grandstands just packed, the beautiful weather that we were afforded for both nights, thank God, because that's a whole nother conversation when it comes to hosting large events in 2024, 2025. It's nerve-wracking, but as I digress there, just being able to see that, and then to follow that right back up with the Pot of Gold 75 in 2024, and to see that many people come back for an event in March. Those were two of the proudest moments. I have big ones. Obviously, marrying my wife was number one and will always be number one, but man, those two moments alone were probably top 5 in my life. And to be able to have the opportunity to do that, and to provide a show for the sport that I love so much, and the people that I've grown to love so much too in the racing community, nothing short of admirable.
I will piggyback off of your comment about, when you're promoting events, it's on to the next thing and you don't get a chance to really soak it in. That is one thing that I wasn't expecting when we did our first race. And, you kind of get accustomed to it after a couple races. And I only did one race. You're doing 20 nights of racing. You're doing this every Saturday. And, one after another. And I had to go back and rewatch the race because I was coming out of the booth. You got to go do the big check, and we're doing lap money and all this extra stuff that we did that night. And I walked through the pits, thank all the drivers for coming to my portion of the race, because it meant a lot to me that we did something that big. Like you were saying, it wasn't Lucas Oil big, but for a local photographer to be, promoting a race and such short notice, which, that's another whole thing. Coming out of the booth and having people tell you how good your race was, and you don't get to go and be like, was it really? I was freaking out the entire time because of 3 days leading up to it was 70% chance of rain, and I was ready to have a mental breakdown. It's something that I don't think a lot of folks might realize for the guys behind the scenes. We don't get to cherish a lot of those moments until after the fact, when you get to sit down and think about it. Even when I've done photos, I was at Eldora for 4 days, and it was my drive home where I was like, was I just at Eldora for 4 days? Like, it was so, breakneck speed going through there. So that was, I believe, an answer that I relate to the most out of most people that I've asked it to.
So at the end of the day, though, it doesn't have to be a Lucas race. If anything, what you're doing with it not being a Lucas race is even more challenging because, like I said, Lucas sells itself, and with Blair buying the racetrack, that kind of sold it too. So there was a lot that helped with that, a significant amount that helped with that. Whenever you don't have the luxury of having a sanctioning body to help you and you're just doing it from the ground level, I think that's even more admirable. So don't discredit what you're doing by any stretch of the imagination, because that's huge. But yeah, I mean, it flies by quick, and kind of going back to what you said, someone say, oh, that was a great race. Be like, was it? Because I didn't have time to watch it. I was too busy doing something else. I was too busy talking with a sponsor. I was too busy making sure that this was working correctly. I was too busy, and you don't appreciate it. Like the one year, actually, I want to say it was the Pittsburgher, not this past year, but the year prior. It was the year that Ricky Thornton Jr. won, I think, for his second time. But the Rush Late Model race was the best race of the night, hands down, no doubt about it. And I had to go back and watch it because I never got to watch any of it. It was between Joe Martin and Colton Flinner, I believe, to the end. And Joe Martin won on the last lap pass, if I'm not mistaken. And they were like, man, that race was better than the Lucas race. And I'm like, was it? Because I didn't have time to watch it. I was busy making sure that the fire that was set outside of the grandstand wasn't going to catch anything else on fire. So I'm glad it was a good race, though. So that's exactly it. Like, you just there's so much other things to focus on. Sometimes you kind of takes you away from the racetrack and the action, it's a bummer. But I think you can probably agree that there's no better feeling than achieving what you can achieve through promotion. So it's worth losing that a little bit.
Well, knowing and hearing that, oh, the best race of the night was the Rush, and people getting excited to want to come back, that's really what we're all in there for. I think I don't know if I speak for everybody that promotes, but I know that at the end of the night, when we got a couple extra fans and we got a couple guys saying, oh man, can't wait for the next one, or you give some of your drivers some more fans, or I remember this year, now we're getting into the weeds for some stuff that we've done here, but being able, sometimes you hear the crowd over the cars, and then you're like, we got him, we're going to get him back. I think I'm very much on that train of trying to get the fans to really enjoy the product we have around here. And I think it's really hard. I think promoting, local and regional stuff might be the most difficult thing right now in our current industry. Well, the national level is doing the best it's ever has, and so I think, the challenges that come with that are, I think that's what keeps me driven to keep going. Cause I think, and I'm sure at PPMS, if you can convert 10 more Tylers that didn't want to ever go back to PPM or never go there ever in their entire life, and then they sit down and they're like, I was wrong, then you won. So
plenty of opportunity to do that, unfortunately,
but it's always good to convert them. So
yeah, for sure.
We'll move on to the next one here. What made you a fan of racing?
Well, I didn't have much of a choice. My father, as I kind of mentioned earlier, my father actually shared a race car with his twin brother, Kevin and Ken Harris. They drove the number 33 Golden Goblet pure stock, then went to the semi-lights before they got out of it. But my grandmother, Ruth Harris, owned the Golden Goblet, which was the bar that sponsored it. And then my grandfather, Joe Harris, they pretty much owned the vehicle, and they traveled around the racetracks like Motordrome, a little bit of Jennerstown, Lernerville, Marion Center. So they had the opportunity to race throughout Western Pennsylvania. So I was born into it. I didn't have a choice. I've been going to the races since I was in the womb. And I'm sure that's relatable to a lot of the people that are watching this that have just been in it so long as kids growing up, and their parents were into it. And it's just kind of become generational at this point. So naturally, I just kind of, got into it. I remember as a kid sitting at Lernerville on Friday nights, playing with my Matchbox cars, racing my Matchbox cars on the bleachers, and not paying any mind or attention to the racing product until I was about a teenager, and then realized that, this on-track stuff's way cooler than these Matchbox cars are. So yeah, I just kind of slowly grew into it, and then was a fan for a long time, and then finally I just thought, man, this sport ain't getting any younger. The next generation needs to come up through, and I kind of want to be involved with this. I was a rugby coach, volunteered my time as a rugby coach on the high school level prior to getting involved with racing, and COVID made a big change in that aspect. So when COVID came along, rugby stopped, and I had a lot of free time on my hands, and I said, well, it's time to put this motivation into action and actually get involved with racing and make an impact if I'm able to. And in the past 5 years, now going on 6, I've been very fortunate, very lucky to be more than just a fan. And if anybody's listening to this, I'll tell you right now, if you've got some free time and you want to donate your time or earn a little extra money with your time, your local racetrack is probably looking for help. I can tell you right now, we always are looking for somebody who can do something, whether it's video work, whether it's promotion, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's officiating, whether it's flipping burgers, whether it's opening and closing a gate, literally taking tickets, being in the concessions, like anything. There's always room for somebody. So if you're looking for something to do and you love the sport and you want to contribute in some way, go to your local racetrack and ask how you can get involved, and I'm sure they'll find something for you.
I think that is something that I've noticed since getting into racing again. I grew up loving it, and then I just took a long break in the middle portion here, through high school and stuff. And then in college, one day I watched the Hunt the Front video, and then I was like, I gotta go racing again. I gotta go experience all this. So that's always good. I noticed that there's always a really big gap, and I know I talked about this with Ben and saying this youth movement is really, really not just exciting for those who are paying attention. And I'm not saying not everybody's paying attention, but those are really paying attention about all these young drivers getting in and a lot of young people getting in the sport. There was a long time where there were just not the same old people. That doesn't sound correct, but let's just the same people were involved, whether it was promoting all the behind the scenes stuff, Pitgate, whether it was cooking in the kitchen. It was the same people for a very long time, and no fresh blood came in. And it now seems like right now we're coming into an era of new faces and new folks. I always say this when I go take photos somewhere else or at a big event. Either you're on one side or the other. You're either a legend of the game that has been doing this for 20, 25 years. I'm going to use Jim Valentine as an example. He's always saying, back in my day, we shot on film. You couldn't last a day as a film photographer. You're one of those guys. And I love listening to Jim talk about the old days because I feel like I missed the boat on back when racing was cool. I'm not saying it's not cool now, but back then everybody thought it was cool. And now you have a lot of young folks out there that really want to promote and get involved. I definitely say, I tell a lot of my friends, like you just said, everybody's looking for help. The more hands that we have to be able to put on a better product for everybody else, and it's great. So instead of going on Facebook, and I'm gonna start my angry man yells at clouds things. Instead of going on Facebook saying this could be better, go make it better. It's That's in my opinion what my advice to a lot of people.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I think over the past couple of years, I think we've all have been noticing that the sport is getting younger, thankfully. I'm happy to see the next generation kind of coming up through. Kids, I say kids respectfully, but people such as yourself. Look at Tyler Buechner with Western Pennsylvania Sprint Speed Week, who puts his heart and soul into that thing. You look at Trevor Zuver, who's taken over the ULMS late models from his father now. So the next generation is coming up through, making their presence known and doing a very good job. And racing needs that, especially at the grassroots level. We need to stay up with the times and with what's modern. But I tell you what, I bet you in 10 years, I'm the washed up old man that's, doesn't know what he's doing and not keeping up with the trends of the world. And that's fine. I think I'm self-aware enough to know when to step aside and let the fresh ideas roll in and take them into consideration when making decisions. If I'm still in this position in 10 years, I hope that I am. But if I'm not, I understand. But yeah, 100%, it's definitely, it's been known as an old man's game for quite some times, but man, those guys are the ones that really laid the platform for us to allow us to come in and step in and do what we do. The Jim Ballantynes and Howie Baylesses of the world that have afforded, and Tommy Hine, that have afforded us the opportunity to come in as we relate to photographers and the Mileys as promoters and stuff. So, but man, kind of going back to real quick too on the commenters, the people that'll go on Facebook and bash and stuff like that. I used to really let that bother me. And I guess it just kind of goes with getting thick skin and just getting used to it. But I tell you what, man, I don't think any sports team in Western Pennsylvania or in the nation takes a worse beating. There's probably a few, but not too many take a worse beating than the Pirates. And Bob Nutting just keeps making more and more money. And I don't think he cares too much about what them people say. But I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, though, at least those people care. And they care so much that they want to go on Facebook and social media and voice their opinions. So I think there's a healthy way to do it. I don't hate that people do it. If anything, it's kind of welcomed. I'd be lying if I said behind the scenes or behind in private settings, I don't get a little annoyed sometimes if the right person strikes the right nerve. But at the end of the day, though, I'm just happy that they care, because that means that I have the opportunity to win them back or make them happy again. At least I hope. So it's never the worst thing in the world.
I will say I am on that people do care, but man, it seems like, in the past couple years, it's been super loud. And as someone who's now promoted races and has worked more in social media, you can't please everybody. But, in the same vein, I always chalk it up to, we all need help getting better. I don't think anybody's product is perfect, right? Sometimes, like you said, sometimes you gotta fall down to learn some lessons. But it's in my opinion, that's usually what I say is, come give us a hand, give me some ideas. I'm not here saying, shut up, or the age old every racetrack is for sale every night that they race is forget who says that, but it's always for sale. Some of them snarky comments back that you can make, but it's I think it's good. A way of thinking though is that they still care and they want that place to succeed. So we'll get to the last one here. If you could bring one thing back, whether it's a racetrack, whether it's a racing class, division, an event, anything in the entire world that you could bring back in motorsports, what would it be?
I tell you what, I really want to see and get to be kind of going back to what you said about things not being, not having the opportunity to see things back when they were great. I really wish I had the opportunity to see wedge late models perform. I think especially at a track like Pittsburgh, that could be really, really interesting. But even at a smaller track like a Pennsboro where they were made pretty big, and that would be pretty cool to see too. I know that there is a division or a series or a sanctioning body that runs them. I don't think they come up this way, but man, it'd be really cool to see a wedge race. That would be really fascinating. That's one thing off the top of my head. I kind of wish Knox Raceway had a fair shake at it back when they reopened. I really had a deep appreciation for what they did with what Brian did and Kevin did there and the entire team up in Knox. I think it was the right thing to do on a Sunday night where you're running 2-3 division shows tops. We're rolling through that program, and I was very fortunate enough to get to announce up there for that season that they reopened as well. And I live an hour and 10 minutes away, and there were nights where I was back home in my bed going to sleep for Monday morning for work at 10 o'clock. And that's hard to beat. That's fantastic. So they just got their racetrack right like Dan Bauman was coming up and helping out with their racetrack, and they got it just right, and nobody was there to watch it because it was a weather threatened program, and they pushed through and they did a great job of doing it. And then unfortunately the demise was very soon after. So I wish Knox Raceway had a fair shake at it. I think that racetrack is a beautiful facility. Brian did a great job of dumping and pouring back into it. Was basically a passion project of his. They have the RV camping side of things not too far away, so that's great for campground, and residual income's always good whenever you have the opportunity to have it at a racetrack that only runs once a week, if that. So those are two things that I wish we could kind of bring back and have the opportunity to see, and maybe modernize them in 2025.
You hit a spot there with the wedge late models. I think those are some of the coolest things. And I know that down south, I have a buddy that, and if anybody pays attention to our iRacing stuff, Caleb Boatwright, we'll shout him out here on the podcast. He's a big wedge late model guy, and he always gets to, when he gets to bring him up, it's always a good time. But Knox Raceway is one of my favorite places I've had the privilege to go. I went there for the Rush Late Model race. I think I went there for some other race. It's escaping me. I think I went there twice or maybe 3 times. And it is, and I always say it's comparable to Bradford Speedway in size, but not really. There's nothing quite like it. And it was in a perfect spot, and that short race program. And I won't knock anybody who runs tons of classes, because I think there's a place for that too. But on a Sunday night, 3 divisions, quick, they were running through that show. The sun didn't even go down. I think one of the shows I was at, they were awesome. The track was awesome. I can't say enough good about that place. It was very exciting to see it open. I was really upset when it closed. I get upset when any racetrack closes, but I have been to places like that where you feel the potential, right? You can see what it can be, and I hope they do get a fair shake at it again sometime soon. I think now that Sundays are pretty wide open, if anybody wants to go reopen Knox, I'll be right there supporting you guys.
Never say never in 2025. You just never know when something might pop back up. Hopefully that'd be great if it ever did. But I can recall one race there, getting to announce it. I remember Greg Wilson was there. I don't think it was Western PA Sprint Speed Week, but there was a show there that I was able to announce. Brandon Spidhaler and Greg Wilson were swapping back and forth, and they were in lap traffic, and it's a quarter-mile bull ring. It might be a little bit bigger than quarter mile, maybe closer to 3/8 of a mile bull ring. They added a lot of banking there for that final season that they were open. Man, it's a great track. It really is. There's something there, kind of like what you said. Jumpin' Joey is entertaining. They've got something good there. If it comes back to fruition, I hope it goes well for them. But if not, at least the memory of it and the opportunity to serve in some purpose there is always with me. So yeah, I do love that track, and the short program was phenomenal.
I'm a huge fan of short programs. And I mean, I liked watching a lot of racing, but man, on a Sunday, they hit a sweet spot. I could go on and on about how much I like that place. I love bull rings. I love, short track racing, as Denny Hamlin, would say there in his interview, the meme that he had. And that's why I have such a sweet spot for Bradford Speedway, which is another bull ring. There is no racing like it. A 3/8 kind of track has its own different style, but them drivers they don't, it's a really big equalizer, because you don't need a big motor. You got to giddy up, you got to get after it, and it's a driver's track, and it is amazing. But all right, hey, before we leave, I want to thank everybody that makes this all happen, and then we'll get out of here.
No, yeah. Big thanks to, I guess from the racetrack level, big thanks to Blair Kress Jr. and his wife Tabitha, and the entire staff and crew down there that helped make everything happen. Obviously, without Blair Kress and his wife Tab, I think things down there are probably a lot different in 2024, 2025. So there's that. But then the entire staff and crew down there, whether it's officials like Smokey Shemp, Red Fight, and Tom and his brother Mike, and everybody down there that helped make the program run smoothly and efficiently down in the pits. That's one thing that I think we pride ourselves on in a big way, is that we run a very efficient program, especially those nights where we have those 6 and 7 division shows, which are no more in 2025. I'm so thrilled. I think we have like maybe 2 or 3 6 division shows, but the rest of them are 5 or less. So I can't wait for that. But nonetheless, it doesn't just stop there. It's everybody around the facility, the people in the concession stands who help put a delicious product, an affordable and delicious product on their brown paper trays, and the people that are taking tickets outside as the people are coming in, and the people who work in the concessions and the gift shop and everything like that. It takes an army. It takes all of our marketing partners that trust us to put on a family fun and exciting entertainment product. And we have so many of them that have trusted us over the past few years and come back on board or come on board in a higher capacity. And we continue to build stronger relationships with those marketing partners and the new ones that are coming on board as well. So there's a lot of exciting things that I have in my back pocket or underneath my cap that I'm ready to roll out. I just need the A-OK to do it. So I think we're going to be in a very good place within the next coming years. I'm really excited for the programs and the things that we have rolling out, the events that we're going to be promoting, and the fun and the creativity that we're going to have within those promotions too. So I'm so thankful for Blair to give me the opportunity to do those things. There's days where I just want to curl up in a ball and cry because there's a lot that goes into this stuff. It's definitely more of a passion project than anything, but one of the most rewarding projects I could ever think of. So, and I'd be remiss, last but most importantly, the fans and the drivers that support our facility. Without the drivers, we don't have an on-track product to show off and showcase to the fans that come through the gates. Without the fans, there's no way we can do what we do because it wouldn't be feasible. Without both of those two entities, it's not possible. So I hope that the fans that do decide to come for the first time, or maybe the first time in a long time, I hope that they have the opportunity to enjoy themselves. If you've never been to the racetrack before, seriously send me a DM on Facebook, and I'll make sure we change that. So to the drivers that have supported us for years and years, thank you for your support. We appreciate the fact that you continue to support us. And to those that are looking to come down for the first time in a long time, or coming more frequently, or the first time ever, please come. And I hope that you have the opportunity to enjoy yourself. There's nothing like the speeds of Pittsburgh, man. That place is wicked fast. Tim Schaefer himself told me that on a track record pace track going into 1 and 3, there's no reason why you're not doing 150 to 155 miles per hour in a sprint car. And that's just serious speed. So dangerous. I hold my breath every time that those sprint cars go out there. As I'm announcing, I'm holding my breath, but it is something special, and you have to see it for yourself. So come on out to Pittsburgh. We'd love to have you guys down there.
Perfectly said. Tyler, thanks for joining us. I think this might be the longest one we've done to date, but a lot of good content here.
I'm a chatty Cathy.
Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm a chatty Cathy, man. I'll talk your ear off, and I will go long on everything. So I apologize if I'm long-winded, but very passionate about what we do down there. So I have a lot to talk about.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in 2025.